Thank you for coming to my channel. I'm Dr. Wong Teck Wee. I'm a consultant cardiologist. And I was the ex-president of Malaysia Healthy Aging Society. I'm still in the council member. So today I'm going to talk about a topic that is not part of my specialty, but it's a issue that is very important to everybody, whether you're a doctor or not a doctor. So this, I'm going to talk about one of the chapters from this book. So this book is called A Difficult Conversation. It was published in 1999 by this few authors, Douglas Stone, Bruce Payton, and Sheila Hinn. And I find that this is a very good book. But if you have no time to read, I have summarized chapter 2. And I think that this chapter is the most important chapter. And after 1 hour, I'm sure you will learn something useful that you can use in your life with your family, friends, and also dealing with your patients. So there are 12 chapters in this book, and I'm going to talk about chapter 2. The chapter is about stop arguing about who is right, explore each other's stories. So I will start with this slide. I want you to spend the next 30 seconds to recall a memorable, unpleasant conversation. So you spend the next 30 seconds, think about what have actually happened, who was involved, and why was the argument, when was it, and whose fault was it. So you spend another 20 seconds thinking about it. Okay, so with that memory recall, I'm going to tell you the principles that has been taught in this book. And before we do anything, I want to talk about this concept of HIIT. I'm sure many of you have heard about it, but maybe you know it in a different form. The other name of this practice is also called Tabata. So during the pandemic, many people are trapped at home, and I'm sure some of you are doing some of this Tabata regime. So what is HIIT? So HIIT is a high intensity interval training that involves short bursts of intense exercise, super strong exercise, alternated with recovery periods. So in 1996, one of the scientists called Professor Tabata, he studied 2 groups of athletes over a period of 6 weeks, and it shows that the group that do the high intensity interval training, where they exercise for 4 minutes. These are cyclists, so they cycle very hard for 4 minutes, and it shows that their VO2, their stamina and fitness is as good as a cyclist that exercise for 60 minutes. So the 4 minutes is as good as exercising for 60 minutes. So this shows that it's a very efficient way of exercising. But as a cardiologist, I also want to warn you, if you have a weak heart and also have a serious block in your heart, you cannot do this because it can be dangerous. But if you have a good heart, this is a very good training to do it in a short period of time. So with this similar principle, I want to ask you to do HIIT for your concentration. So what it means by this is that I want you to spend the next 1 minute with your eyes closed, concentrating on your breath. So it's a hyper-focused concentration on your breath for 1 minute. For that 1 minute, you have no distraction. Whatever that the noises or the thinking that you have to ignore it and just focus on your breath. The breath, you are not controlling it. Let it breathe breathe normally, but you must be able to be able to pay attention to your breath coming in, coming out from your nose to the end, and the breath coming in through your nose. So the point that you have to focus is on your nostril, where you can feel the air coming up. And when the air stops, the air coming in. So just pay 100% attention to your breath only, nothing else. The rest you have to ignore. So this is a hyper-focus training of your attention. It's a similar principle with the exercise HIIT. So with that, I want you to close your eyes, and I will give you a 1 minute timing and see how much you can focus. Some people can focus 100%, so those are very accomplished people. But if you can focus about 30%, is considered very good. So let's do this exercise now. I will give you 60 seconds to pay attention to your breath with your eyes closed. Okay, so we will start now. Close your eyes and pay attention to your breath. Okay, you all can open your eyes slowly, and then please type in the chat box how much attention can you put in for the last minute. It can be 10%, it can be 20%, it can be 30%, so you can see how good you are. So if your attention span is less than 50%, maybe you have to see a pediatrician for diagnosis of ADHD. Sorry, just joking. So you see that our mind is naturally running around. Now you have to be able to pay attention. So this paying attention is very important for our memory. If you don't pay attention, even if you are a genius, if you go to school and you're not able to pay attention to what teacher are teaching, then you may not remember whatever that is taught. So pay attention is the first step of a good memory. And why I ask you to practice this? Because sometimes when you have a difficult conversation, you will not pay attention to what was being discussed. Your mind will be going back to your database in your brain, looking for all the previous event that has happened instead of paying attention. So if you're not paying attention, you may say the wrong things. And if you're not paying attention of what you say, you may regret what you have said. So paying attention is the first step of good memory and the first step of quality conversation. So with that background, I will start to talk about the book. So chapter 2, you can see here, there are many subtopics. Here is why we argue and why it doesn't help. We think they are the problem. They think we are the problem. We each make sense in our story of what happened. Arguing blocks us from exploring each other's stories. And we have different information. We have different interpretation. Same thing, it means something else, interpreted differently. And the conclusion and curiosity, the way into their story. So I'm going to talk about all this in the next 1 hour. So all of us is a unique human being, just like a unique iceberg. And some of us, when we are in medical school, we learn about Virginia Satir. So this lady, She's one of the leaders in family therapy. So all of us are just like an iceberg. On the surface, you can see the face, the body language, and the feeling. But deep down, there's a lot of story that you are not aware of. So in Virginia Satir model, what you see as a behavior, there are a lot of other things that's below the surface, like the coping strategy, their feelings about their feelings. So so if you want to know more, you can study, Google her and you find out what all this means. Perceptions, so they have different values, expectations, yearnings, and the deep core self-value, the spiritual, the soul, the life force, and the needs to be loved. So sometimes you see some of the successful people, you can see their success, but you don't know what has happened below it. There's like sacrifices, the hard work they put in, the courage, and disappointments, and the action, the struggle. So you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so in this book, the first example that is given here is about two workers. One is a boss, Michael, and the other one is a staff called Jack. So they are working in a corporate world where Jack has to prepare some slides for the boss. So they have to prepare some of these figures for the boss. So let's go through the conversation. So Jack is the staff, Michael is a boss. So Jack say, Michael say, look, Jack, this thing has to be done over. So he's not happy. And Jack said, well, a minute, I agree it's not perfect, but the chart is clearly labeled. Nobody is going to misunderstand. So this is the conversation after a disastrous meeting. So the client was not happy. So now they are talking to each other. Then Michael said, come on, Jack, you know as well I do that. We can't send this thing out like this. Then Jack said, I think that Michael said, there's really nothing to argue about here. Look, we all screw up. Just fix it and let's move on. Because he's not happy with the slide. Why didn't you say something about this when you look at this morning? So he showed him the slide, but he didn't say anything. And I'm not the one who is supposed to be proofreading, Jack. I'm under tremendous pressure to get this done and to get it done right. Either you are on the team or you're not. I need a yes or a no. Are you going to redo it or not? All right, I will do it. So you can see that there's a lot of conflict in this conversation. So both of them have a different iceberg. So the boss now has a big iceberg because he has a lot of things on his plate. So in Jack's below the surface, how could he leave a message like that? After I drop everything, break a dinner date with my wife and stay up all night, and that's the thanks I get. A total overreaction. Not even a CPA would be able to tell that the graph is not normal. At the same time, I'm angry with myself for making such a stupid mistake. And the iceberg for the boss, in the past couple of years, I've been really gone all of my way to try to help Jack. I want to help him. And it seems that one thing or another has always gone wrong. And instead of assuming that the client is always right, he argues with me. I just don't know how I can keep using him. But what really made me angry was the way Jack was making excuses about the chart instead of just fixing it. He knew it wasn't up to professional standards, and the revenue graphs were the critical part of the financial presentation. So these are not brought up in the conversation, but the things that are going in their mind. So in any conversation, there are three things that happen. One is that what actually happened, the feelings that is involved, the identity issues. So these are a bit deep, but you can see here, the conversation, there are multiple stories. The story of the Jack and also the story of Michael. So Jack's story said, I interrupted important work to do a favor for a friend who then overreacted to an insignificant mistake and bullied me into redoing the whole job. I got no thank you and took no responsibility for having signed off on it. And then on Michael's side, Michael was counting on me to get it right, and I let him down. Then I argue with him about it instead of making it right. So that's his story as well. And then intention, I want to have a friend do a good job, impact on me, and Michael's intention, get the brochure out fast. So, and then all the feelings. So if you have time, you can read it, but I think this is more in depth. So in any conversation, any encounter that you have with another human being, there's always three outcomes. One is that you agree with the other person. The other one is neutral. So if you agree and neutral, then the conversation is not a difficult conversation. Today, our topic is a difficult conversation. Which means that you disagree with the other person. So any disagreement, it causes a negative emotion now and also future. It lingers on and it perpetuates. And you always think that they are the problem. I'm not sick. You are the one that's sick. You are the one that need to see the doctor. This is very common in spouse relationship. And we exert harder to break through to let them come to senses. So the more that they don't understand, we make it harder. And we persist to be harder, that lead to more argument and lower self-identity for both sides and worsen the relationship. So the problem because of a difference in the values. So we always say that they are selfish, they are naive, they are controlling, they are irrational. So these are some of the things that you can read up later, because this will be recorded and you can go through it slowly on your own. So before I tell you the solution, I will tell you my own encounter. I have a very difficult conversation recently. I performed an uncomplicated angioplasty on a well-educated 60-year-old man. He is a very powerful and also important person. He called me 1 week ago, out of the blue, without warning, 5 months after the operation, raising his concern that his current slow heart rate, bradycardia, was the consequences of the operation. His cardiac rehabilitation therapist alerted him to stop exercise because his heart rate was slow. Otherwise, he has no symptoms and argued that he looks young and he cannot accept having a pacemaker if required, and hinted a regret of doing the angioplasty in the first place. How do you manage the patient and also myself? So I will talk about this case at the end of this talk. Okay, this second example is between old lady and her niece. So it says that my great aunt Bertha sleeps on this sagging old mattress. She has got terrible back problem, but no matter what I say, she refuses to let me buy a new mattress. Everyone thinks that Auntie Bertha is irrational. So what is the story behind them? I mean, what is the story beneath the surface? So the niece Rory say, if this is what we are thinking, then it's not surprising that we end up again. Rory, for example, cares about Aunt Bertha. She wants to help and she has the capacity to help us. But if the other person is stubborn means that she don't want to change the old mattress that can cause back pain. We exert harder in an attempt to break through whatever is keeping them from seeing what is sensible. If you would just try a new mattress, you will see how much more comfortable it is. Very logical, right? So I think if I'm in the same place, I would say so. But do you know the story of Auntie Bertha? So Auntie Bertha said, about Laurie, Auntie Bertha said, I love her, but Laurie can be a difficult person. She doesn't listen or care much about what other people think. And when I tell her that, she gets very angry and unpleasant. Laurie thinks the problem is Aunt Bertha, but Aunt Bertha thinks it seems the problem is Laurie. So both have their own story. But you come to the next important info from Aunt Bertha. Aunt Bertha will be the first to agree that her mattress is indeed old and battered. It's the one I share with my husband for the last 40 years, and it makes me feel safe, she says. There are so many other changes in my life. It's nice to have a little heaven that stays the same. Keeping the mattress is also provides Bertha with a sense of control over her life. When she complains, it's not because she wants answer. So this old mattress has an important value to her, which Laurie didn't know, or she could have asked. So who makes sense? We don't see ourselves as a problem because in fact we aren't. We are saying, okay, we just go to straight to the underline. Like Laurie and Aunt Bertha, we each has different story about what is going on. So in Laurie's story and Aunt Laurie's story, Aunt Bertha's story, what Laurie says seems pushy and insensitive. In Laurie's story, Alberta sounds irrational. So they have a different interpretation of the event. And arguing brought us from exploring each other's story. Arguing is not only a result of our failure to see what we and other person are in a different story. Arguing inhibits our ability to learn. And arguing without understanding is not persuasive. So if you want to sell your idea, you must be able to persuade them by talking nicely. If you're arguing, you are not able to convince them to change. So it inhibits them to change, and people almost never change without first feeling understood. So in my practice, instead of telling them what to do, just for example, some of the patients who smoke, instead of telling them you must stop smoking because otherwise you may get a heart attack, you end up with a bypass. We have to start to understand their feeling. So the first thing that I say is that understand you have been smoking for so long, and it's very difficult to stop. So by saying that, just saying the real facts, it makes them feel that you are a partner in helping him to stop smoking. So don't jump straight into why they have to stop, the consequences of stopping. But you must start with addressing their feelings and concern. And the chances of persuading them to change will be much better. So can this solve the problem? To get anywhere in the disagreement, we need to understand the other person's story well enough to see how their conclusion makes sense of it. These are keywords, conclusion, which I will explain later. At the moment, maybe you don't understand what it means. And we need to help them understand the story in which our conclusion makes sense. Understanding each other's stories from the inside won't necessarily solve the problem, but as with Karen and Trevor, is an essential first step. So it may not solve the problem, but at least you understand why your opponent are behaving in the way they are. Okay, so if you look at this, the first thing you see here is this the middle finger being put up. You may say that it's a rude, but it may mean something else to another person. Okay, so if you look at this, whatever things that happen, the encounter, there is we use our way to experience the world by our 5 senses: the sights, the sounds, and the feelings. And we interpret what we see, hear, and feel, and we give it all the meaning. So what it means is that you see and hear, and also the feeling involved, the emotional involved, and then this is what we observe. But let's say if you are not paying attention to all the details, we may miss some of the details of what is said and what is what you see and the feeling that's involved. And each one have a different interpretation. So 2 persons looking at the same thing may have a different interpretation. And to this different interpretation will end up with a different conclusion. So even though you are in the same place, but you may get a different story out of it. So sometimes you can read on the newspaper, one journalist will report it a different way, even though they attend the same event. So you can see how we observe and how we interpret. So in difficult conversation, too often we treat only conclusion. We only talk about conclusion. So sometimes husband and wife will say, you are not caring, you're not loving, because you didn't do certain, but didn't say why he said that he's not loving, not caring. They are just jump straight to the conclusion, and you don't know how he arrived to this conclusion. So, okay, so I want you to look at this picture in the next 5 to 10 seconds. Then in the chat box, I want you to write down what you notice there. What are the things that you notice and your feeling. Okay, so these are testing your attention and also your feeling out of this. Okay, I'll give you about 5 seconds. You put it in the chat box. So if you look at this picture, depending on your background, and this picture certainly comes from US, and in the book they talk about this uncle and also a nephew. So the uncle is an old guy of about 40, 50 years old, took his 4-year-old nephew Andrew to watch a homecoming parade. Sitting on his uncle's shoulder, Andrew is the nephew, shouted with delight as football players, cheerleaders, and the school band rolled by on the lavish floats. Afterward, Andrew exclaimed that that was the best truck parade. So each parade there's always a truck, but in this case, Andrew is a truck. He's obsessed with truck, and for him he just saw the truck and also the color and the design of the truck. But for the uncle, his attention is somewhere else. So it shows that even though you are in the same event, but you are paying attention to a different thing, what you get out of the conclusion out of this is totally different. So some of us pay more attention to feelings and relationship, others to status and power. So depending on what you pay attention to. So what are you paying attention to? So that is very important. Okay, and for those of you who have been an expert witness, when you go to the court, there are two important fundamentals in the court. First is facts. Second is opinion. Facts is a hard evidence. You can see certain things, some books or whatever test that is done. And based on this test, expert will give their opinion. So facts is facts, you cannot change. Opinion, same facts, but different expert will give different opinion. So I appear in the court and I'm representing the plaintiff. I have my own opinion. The other side will have their own opinion and up to the judge to decide. But the facts is the same. So same thing, the blind man and the elephant. So for all these blind men, they are feeling different parts of the body of this elephant, and all of them think it's a truth. Elephant is like a rope, elephant is like a wall, elephant is like a fan, like a spear, like a snake, and like a tree. To them, it's real. This is the facts for them, but they are not looking at the whole picture. So when there is argument, all of them will think that they are seeing the real truth, but is it the real truth? So that's the differences that we have to be aware. Sometimes we are so strongly opinionated, we don't know that there are other facts that you are not aware of. Okay, so we go back to this first story about the boss Michael and Jack. So they say, we each know ourselves better than anyone else can. They know their hopes, dreams, and fears. So now we go and explore further. There are iceberg below the surface. So let's return to the example of Jack and Michael. And when Michael describes what happened, he doesn't mention anything about Jack staying up all night. So Michael doesn't know that he stayed up all night. He might not know that Jack's his knowledge would be quite limited compared to what Jack knows. What is Jack was there. Jack knows what it felt like as he struggled to stay awake. He knows how uncomfortable it was when the heater was turned off at midnight. He knows how angry his wife was that he had to cancel their dinner together. He knows about the anxiety he felt putting aside other important work to do Michael's project. Jack also knows how happy he felt to be doing a favor for a friend. So these are things that is happening in Jack's mind. He stay up night. He had to cancel the dinner. He had to cancel important work. And there's plenty that Jack is not aware of also. Jack doesn't know that Michael's client blew up just that morning over the choice of photography in another brochure that Michael has prepared. Jack doesn't know that the revenue figures are particularly hot topic because of some issue and about some of the client's recent business decision. Jack also doesn't know that Michael's graphic designer has taken an unscheduled personal leave in the midst of their busiest season, affecting not just this project but others as well. Jack doesn't know that Michael has been dissatisfied with some of the Jack's work in the past, and Jack doesn't know how happy Michael felt to be doing a favor for a friend. So if you look at this, it seems like a very difficult problem that impossible to solve, you know. So each of them have their own story. How to solve this? At the end of this, I have some solution that you can contemplate. So when you look at this glass, some will look at it as half full and half empty. So how to apply to this? So we have different interpretation. So just like what we just say, same thing, but we interpret it differently. So this is a very funny thing that is in the movie Annie Hall. So one of the actors say, we never have sex. The man, the girlfriend said, we are constantly having sex. So the therapist asks, how often do you have sex? Then both of them say 3 times a week. So to them, it means different. For the man and the woman, their meaning is different. Even though they physically do it, but it means different thing. The second reason we tell a different story about the world is that even when we have the same information, we interpret it differently. We give it a different meaning. Okay, I see the cup and all that. Two especially important factors in how we interpret what we see are our past experience, implicit rules that we have learned about how things should and should not be done. So these are our personal rules and our private past experience that will affect the way we interact with others. So we have different rules. Okay, this is another example that was given between these two persons called Oli and Tema. So they are stuck in okay. So they are sales representative. They spend a lot of time together on the road. So one evening they agreed to meet at 7 a.m. the next morning at the hotel lobby to finish their presentation. Thelma, as usual, arrived at about 7 a.m. sharp. Oli will show up at 7:10. And this was not the first time Oli had arrived late. And Thelma was so frustrated that she had trouble focusing for the first 20 minutes of their meeting. And Oli also was frustrated that Thelma was frustrated. So it helps to clarify the rules that each is unconsciously applying. Thelma's rule is, it is unprofessional and inconsiderate to be late. You are stealing my time. Oli's rule is unprofessional to obsess about small little things so much, and you should have focused on what's important. So who is right here? Both of them are right, but they have different rules. So how to go about in dealing with this type of conflict? Okay, this is another example, another study done by Professor Howard Raifa of Harvard Business School. So they want 2 groups to evaluate a company. One as a buyer of this company, the other as a seller of this company. So they want this economic student to look at this company and decide what is the value of this company. So they found that the sellers believe the company is worth average 30% more than independently assessed fair market. So if they are sellers, they think that the value is higher than the market rate. For the buyers, they will value it 30% less. So these are the psychology of how your self-interest, will affect the outcome of the conversation. So each team developed a self-serving perception without realizing that what they were doing. They focused more on things that were consistent with what they wanted to believe and tended to ignore others. Okay, so this tendency to develop unconsciously biased perception is very human and can be dangerous. It calls for a dose of humility about the rightness of our story, especially when we have some things important at stake. So just like in Malaysia, you look at the polarity in our political view. Or some will say that this is good, that's good. Instead of looking at the differences, we must look at the outcome. What are the things that we want in our country? Right? We want a peaceful country and the country that prospers rather than with a severe economic downturn. So we should aim for that instead of looking at our differences. So we move from certainty to curiosity. Instead of so sure that I'm right, we must instead have this mental position of curiosity. So there's only one way to come and understand the other way, that's by being curious. Instead of asking yourself, how can they think like that? Ask yourself, I wonder what information they have that I don't have. Instead of asking, how can they be so irrational? Ask, how might they see the world such that their view makes sense to me? So you have to use this strategy of curiosity rather than be so sure of what you know. So another thing is that, do you know yourself well? So sometimes you also don't know that some of these are subconscious thing that is going behind you that's affecting your decision. So this may sound like a very strange odd story to worry about. You should know about yourself, but you are with yourself all the time. Wouldn't you be pretty familiar with your own perspective? No. The process by which we construct our story about the world often happens so fast and so automatically that we are not even aware. So that's why the hyper focus exercise that I started today is to be aware of what is happening in you, all the influences our view. For example, when we saw that what Jack was really thinking and feeling during the conversation with Michael, there was nothing about the heat being turned off, about the wife's anger of cancelling their dinner plans. Even Jack wasn't fully aware that this factor may affect his interaction with Michael. Okay, it happens in the background, but it also affects your interaction with others. So sometimes you are not aware that this is happening. So how to overcome this? The solution of this different story is to use the end stance. So end stance is a strategy. You have to embrace both stories. So the mere act of understanding someone else's story doesn't require you to give up your own. So it's not to pretend both of your stories are right. It's just to acknowledge that I know your story, and that will reduce the tension between the two of you. So how about sometimes I'm super confident that I'm right, just like the earth is a sphere. This is a fact one, you know. So this is one of the joke that he put up here. There's an old story of two clerics arguing about how to do God's work. In the spirit of consolation, one finally says to the other, you and I see things differently, and that's okay. We don't need to agree. You can do God's work your way. I will do God's work his way. So he is still very strong of his opinion. So the tendency to think that this way can be overwhelming. But if you understand another person's story with genuine insight and empathy, you may still stumble on the next step, thinking that however much their story makes sense to them, you are still right, and they are still wrong. So how to go about it? So I want you to think for the next 10 seconds. If your daughter or your son is smoking, you know super well that this is unhealthy and wrong. How do you deal with this? So the example that's given here. This is a conversation of a father and a daughter about smoking. You know you're right that smoking is bad for her, but there's that is not what the conversation is really about. It's about how you each feel about your daughter's smoking, and how you do about it. It's about the terrible fear and sadness you feel as you imagine her becoming sick. That's the father's story, and you're rich as feeling powerless to make her stop. But on her side, it's about her need to feel independent, to break out of the good girl mold that feels so suffocating. It's about her own ambivalence doing something that makes her feel good and that at the same time truly frightens her. So the conversation is about many issues between the two of you that are complex and important to explore. It's not about truth or whether smoking is bad for one's health. Both father and daughter knows that the smoking is bad, but it's the other issue that influence the outcome. And how about giving bad news? Let's say you want to fire someone. Remember, understanding the other person's story doesn't mean you have to agree with it, nor does it require you to give up your own. So the strategy that I said earlier is the and. Okay, instead of giving up on your stand, you can use this stand called and. I mean, we acknowledge both sides story. So I give you an example here. If you are breaking up with someone, it allows you to say, I'm breaking up with you because it's the right thing for me. That's my stand. And understand how hurt you are, your stand. And that you think that we should try again, that's your stand. And I'm not changing my mind, that's my stand. And I understand that you think I should have been more clear about my confusion earlier, your stand. But I don't think that makes me a bad person. And I understand that I've done things that I have hurt you, my stand. And I know you've done things that also have hurt me. And I know I might regret this decision, my stand, and I'm still making it. And so when you do this, it may improve the quality of the conversation. So the rest of the book, which I think the important part is about whatever that you talk about with your opponent, you must think of the outcome. What is the outcome that you want to achieve? If your outcome, let's say you argue with your wife, your outcome is to have a peaceful family, have a loving family, then the way you interact will be different. So you must think of the outcome. It's not just to win the argument. You have to be aware. Like as I said, be focused and aware of whatever that you do. The outcome is this. So when you are aware of the outcome, the way you react to your opponent will be very different. Okay, so just like when you have a difficult patient in your office, sometimes you're so busy and so overwhelmed. Instead of arguing further and shouting at each other, you must think of outcome. Now, if you continue to argue with the patient, it may damage your reputation if he record you and you go to social media and become very bad. So if you have to think of what are the consequences of your action. So instead of you find that the patient are so irrational and angry, maybe you just have to keep quiet and the more words that you say, it may be more difficult. So to move forward, first understand where you are, and you must understand the other person and yourself more deeply. Doesn't mean that the differences will disappear, and you can solve the problem. But it will help you evaluate whether your strong view makes sense in light of new information and different interpretation. So you have strong views, but because of your exploration with curiosity of your opponent, some new information may appear, and new interpretation may appear, and maybe your view may change. And it will help you to help others to appreciate the power of those views. And whatever you want to go understanding, imagine yourself, you must imagine yourself into the other person's story. Should be your first step before you make the judgment. Before you can figure out how to move forward, you need to understand where you are and where your opponents are. Okay, so come back to the case that I had when I did the operation on this 60-year-old man. So in this case, there are two persons. So if you live isolated in a mountain and a cave, then there's no difficult conversation. Difficult conversation only happens when there are two different opinions, and these two different opinions have their own iceberg. There are issues that they are thinking below the ice, below the top of the ice. So I analyzed this. Now on the spot, I was not aware of this, but because of preparing this talk, I analyzed some of the underlying issue that is involved, the iceberg below each of us, between me and the patient. So for me, I always practice mindfulness. So the breath that I taught you just now, instead of doing a 1 minute breath, because you have no time to do the 1 minute breath before you talk to him, you can just do one breath. So while he's talking, you just take one big breath and just pay attention, full awareness of the breath and your being. awareness of yourself, that will make you more relaxed and calm. And then from then on, be mindful of what you say and your physical mannerism and the feeling that comes to you. So it's easy to say, but it needs to be practiced. So try to do it yourself. Instead of, I suggest all of you should do at least 1 minute of hyper intensity focus. And whenever you encounter difficult situation, take one breath and pay strong attention to it, so that you are grounded. No, you are not distracted. So for this case of mine, we have to establish the facts versus opinion. What is the facts? So was his heart rate low before operation? Is the low heart rate causing the harm? Just like any legal requirements, if it cause damage, then it's considered medical negligence. So I was going through my iceberg. I was thinking, do I make mistakes? And I was upfront with him. I said, we are professional. He's also a professional. So I said, you should understand, as professional, we are bound by our ethics and our license requirement. And I have no intention to harm you. And if I do anything that is illegal, I may lose my reputation. So these are the upfront thing that I told her. And from his point of view, that's my interpretation of how he feel. From the way he said. So I thought that he was concerned about malpractice. Maybe I should not do the operation. And I was trying to profiteering to do an operation that is not required. And maybe the operation has caused some complication. And he is also worried about the future costs and also disability used on the pacemaker. He said he's not an old man, why you need a pacemaker? So as I said before, any encounter, you must always look at the purpose and intention. What's the goal? So you have to find the cause of his problem and improve it. And I suggest to get some facts and like echo and Holter to see whether this slow heart rate is a problem. And after that call, I went back to look at his old notes and found that his ECG is already bradycardia. His heart rate is about 48, 50. And I showed to him that the heart rate was already low before the op. So with that, he was not angry anymore and continued to come and see me. So sometimes your interaction with others, if you start with anger and a strong opinion, they say that I didn't do anything, I didn't cause any harm to you, you should not have accused me of that, then the outcome can be very different. So we have to be aware of what we say. One word that you say wrongly can cause harm to you. So I will end my talk here, and I want you to recall. So if you all have paid attention, there must be something that you have learned today, and you can put it in the chat box. And if there's anything that I missed, then you can ask me now. And also you check on yourself. Were you distracted throughout the last 1 hour? So with that, I will stop here. And I also encourage you to do the 1 minute hyper intensity micro practice. So we know that we can train our body by exercising, but a lot of times we don't train our mind. So we must train our mind. And I urge you to spend 1 minute of all the minutes you have for 24 hours on concentrating on paying attention to your current self, and I'm sure that will help with your interaction with others. Okay, with that, I will stop here. If there's any questions, you can put it in the chat box. all of you are experts, so there's no difficult question to ask me. So I urge all of you to, I mean, in the comment, someone said that to practice the HIIT on breath, which I think is a very easy and useful practice. So you're on the public transport, you can do that. When you are waiting for something, just like when you're waiting for your food, you know, and you can do this self-awareness. So instead of, let's say you are standing and you cannot close your eye, you look very funny, right? You are waiting for in the queue for food. If you close your eyes, then people say, why is this guy closing the eyes? So what you can do is self-awareness of your being. Being means that your whole body. So what it means is that just like sitting here, all of you sitting in front of the screen, you know, you're not closing your eyes, just like me, I'm not closing my mind, but I have this split-second awareness of my whole body. Because our mind can move so fast, we can be in New York, in Japan, in split second. So these are the awareness. So the trick is to be aware of your being, of your physical body, of your posture, of your physical body. So there is also a practice of concentration. So you can try that at any time. Because when you do that, you'll find that you are calmer, you are not so stressed. So when we are stressed, because we are thinking about the past and the future. So this past and future is it's like bombarding your brain, it makes you very, very stressed. But when you're aware of the current, the present time, the now, then it can make you improve on your concentration and also your stress. So some patients who have difficulty sleeping, just the practice of concentrating on the breath can help them to sleep better. Because one is the reason why they have difficulty sleeping is because of thinking. So just ask any of your patients who have insomnia. The main reason is because of thinking. So when your mind is thinking, your mind can be in Singapore, it can be in London, you know, can be in Terengganu, you know, if you're thinking about your family or your child, then you cannot sleep. So my principle of sleeping is that you have to be present. Your mind and your body must be in the same place. If you are separated, your mind is thinking elsewhere, you cannot sleep. So the practice of the concentration of the breath may help you to sleep because your mind and the body is in the same place, and at the same time it also can relax you. So I urge all of you to practice for your own mental well-being. You can exercise to build your body, but you also must exercise your brain for intelligence and also for your mental, psychological well-being. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I think I'll stop here. Thanks for attending my talk, and I'm quite encouraged that a lot of you are interested in this non-medical talk, which is good. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.